Hello, my name is Sean Buckley with the Natural Health Product Protection Association, and I'm really excited about this interview. I've got Tyler Henning with me, and Tyler, you're a dairy farmer.
Yep.
And
whole life.
And welcome to the NHPPA Health Show. Your family actually has a pretty interesting history. Tell us how long your family has been on this farm as dairy farmers.
My grandpa started the dairy in 1950. He started shipping cream. And since then, we went from shipping cream to shipping milk. And we were up to 120 cows at our peak. And now we're slowly tapering down, and we're milking about 45 right now.
Right. Okay. So, and this started in 1950. So that's 76 years.
Yeah.
That your family has been, on the same farm as a dairy farm.
That's when we started the dairy. They had it since like 1925 is when we started farming.
Right. Okay. And then, switched into the dairy it's just 76 years. The reason why I'm wanting to emphasize that for people that might be watching this is if any family is an expert in dairy farming, it has to be your family, because your grandfather did it, and then your father did it, and now you're doing it.
Yeah.
And your father's still helping you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I assume that your kids also help you.
Yep. Yeah, they do a lot on the farm actually.
And yeah, so I mean, just if I wanted to find an expert in dairy farming, I could go to your family, I could go to you, and it's just you guys have a unique experience. Now, I interviewed you before just so that I kind of know what questions to ask and where to go for this interview. And Tyler, I left that interview with the feeling that you guys care about your cows.
Yep. Yeah, we have cows. Our oldest cow was 21, had 19 calves. And then after she had the last calf, we kept calves on her for a couple extra years, raised them out in the field just because she was an old cow.
Mm-hmm.
She was actually the one we used to milk for we used to have a whole bunch of schools come out to our farm, and we'd always have to milk one or two cows, and she'd be the one that goes in the parlor, and we'd milk her, and 25 kids and parents would stand around her watching her get milked. For about 8 years, she did that.
Oh, so she's a very good-natured cow.
Yep.
Right. Well, it's just kind of interesting that you brought up the school trips, because what we're going to talk about, I'm getting the impression that the government's going to be putting an end to things like school trips.
Yeah, we used to do it every year for Edmonton, Spruce Grove, Stony Plain, Devon. We used to get a whole whack of field trips, and the Dairyland would give us 600 Dixie cups every year for the kids, erasers, pens, pads of paper, all that kind of stuff. And then they thought it was too much of a liability, so they stopped all of it.
Right. And now, as we'll get into, you even have to have a standard operating procedure on how you're going to protect your cows and your farm if even your neighbor drops by for a cup of coffee unannounced. So, and I think a lot of people watching will remember when they were in school visiting farms, because we were taught where our food came from, and going to a farm was an exciting thing, and farms welcomed people. But the government seems to be changing that, which we'll go into for a second. But so you guys, you've been doing this for 76 years in the dairy. You care about your cows. You're experts about your cows. I also suspect that you need healthy cows just because it's your business. You've got a personal interest in having your herd as healthy as possible.
Yep.
Okay. And I'm really doing this more for people watching, so that just as we go into this discussion, that they understand, wait a second, you guys expect that you need healthy cows just because it's your business. You've got a personal interest in having your herd as healthy as possible.
Yep.
Okay. And I'm really doing this more for people watching, so that just as we go into this discussion, that they understand, wait a second, you guys have been doing this for 76 years. You care about your cows, and you have an interest in the cows being as healthy as possible. Now, there's this new program called ProAction. But before this program, which we're going to talk about, can you share with us, so first of all, you guys will have cows on your farm for 20 years.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So this is a long-term thing. Before this government program came into effect, how many drugs would one of your dairy cows typically get in their lifetime? And that would include vaccines.
For blackleg, when they were 3 months old, that was pretty much it. That's all we used to always give. Okay.
So you would give a vaccine when the calves were 3 months old, and I just know from an earlier conversation that was a vaccine called 8-way.
Yeah.
And you would do that because on your farm, if you didn't do that vaccine, actually some of your calves would get blackleg. There was a reason why.
And they could die within 24 hours. They say it's a spore in the soil when the grass gets low, or could be a bunch of different reasons, but it's always been in our soils. So we just always gave for it.
Right. And then so you would give this vaccine when the calves were around 3 months old, and then that was it. That lasted for the 20 years of their lifespan on the farm.
Yep. They would ever get blackleg after that.
Right. And so that would be the single vaccine that one of your dairy cows would get, is this 8-way vaccine when they're 3 months old.
Yep.
Okay. So, and then my understanding is you guys would once a year spray your cows with a solution containing ivermectin, which is kind of a dewormer.
Yep. Once or twice a year, depending. And just took out all internal and external parasites, and yeah.
And then that was it.
Yep.
Okay. So now this ProAction program came into force, and I'll just let people watching, you can just do an internet search for ProAction and you'll find this. and for, it's a program for dairy farmers. And what you're going to find is you're going to find this really, really long document that explains to the dairy farmers, okay, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. And we're going to go into some of those. And then the second part of the program is the farmers have to have a workbook. They've got to have all these, they're called standard operating procedures, which they didn't have to have before. So, Tyler, I'm just trying to let people kind of know what's going on. But this ProAction program, one of the things it requires you to do is to, get a veterinarian involved and come up with basically a vaccination and drug plan to protect your cows from biohazards, right? This is all for biosecurity. Can you share with us so what's changed on the vaccination schedule? And I made notes, so if you have trouble, I don't know if you have your workbook there or not.
I don't.
But can you okay. So before you would basically give one vaccine once, this 8-way, I'll try and help you because I have my notes. So my understanding is that now you're supposed to give what's called a 4-way before the calf is born.
Yeah.
Okay.
Helps the cows. They say it helps the cows and the calves for scours and any disease. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And we'll hang on to the scours one. I think you're now using triangle 10, 2 months before the calf is born, in theory, to stop the calf from being aborted.
Yeah. They said there's high rates of abortion, which we never ever had issues with, but they recommend we give it to them.
Right. And I'll just stop there because I knew from our earlier conversation, you guys do not have a problem prior to this being imposed on you with calves being aborted. And I suspect if you did have that problem, you'd be trying to find an answer, and somebody wouldn't have to tell you if this triangle 10 worked.
Yep.
Okay. So now they're getting this triangle 10 to solve a problem you don't have. The 8-way, my understanding is that you're supposed to give that to them every year. So before you would just give it once when they were 3 months old and it would last them 20 years, but now you're expected to give this vaccine every year.
Yep.
Okay. So if a calf's on your or a cow's on your farm for 20 years, that they're going to get that 8-way now 20 times.
Yeah.
Okay. My understanding is it's recommended that you give them this bovine rotavirus or rotu. I forget how it's pronounced, for coronavirus and scabies. Yep. And there's also a bovine ronavirus, which is I think that's the Scour Boss 9.
Yeah.
For coronavirus.
There's a Scour Boss 4 and a Scour Boss 9 for different kinds of scours and different types of stuff for the calves, they say.
Right. So you're getting 2 different vaccines, and these are yearly vaccines, right?
Yeah, and they both added COVID-19 into them.
Right. And you didn't have problems with scours before, and you didn't have problems with COVID-19 before.
No, we used to just give electrolyte for our scours, and if they had any bit of sign of dehydration and that, we'd give them electrolytes and stuff like that, and then usually that would be all we'd need.
Right. Okay. And this is important. So if that problem arose of scours, you could treat them with electrolytes, which is, something, humans even need, and it would solve their problem.
Yeah.
You didn't need a vaccine. My understanding is now you're also giving them forgive my pronunciation, trotrazeril, which is a pill.
Yeah, that's if they do get the scours, we can give them that, and it helps make it thicker, their poop, I guess. Keep them hydrated.
Right. Okay.
And that one, if they do get it, we can give it to them. If they don't, they recommend we give it to them at birth, but we just give it to them if needed.
Right. In addition to, you probably still use electrolytes, right?
Yep.
Right. Okay, now you're also using an enforced 3, which is, it goes up the nose to treat for pneumonia?
Within 12 hours of birth, you sprayed up their nose in case they had pneumonia. We don't have issues with pneumonia, but
Right.
they recommend we give it to them. If we did have pneumonia, it would make sense, but we don't really have issues with pneumonia.
Right. And then there's this Tasvax that you're supposed to give it 3 or 4 months and annually.
Yeah, for the cows. It's supposed to help
and that
calves.
Right, but it's supposed to help with blackleg, right?
Yeah, it's. I think there's an 8-way built into it.
Right. So this would be in addition to the 8-way. Okay. So the point I'm trying to make is, and hopefully the viewers understand, is you guys, that have been doing this for 76 years. You know animal health. You want your cows to be healthy. You were giving one vaccine for their, a 20-year lifespan, and you would be spraying topically with ivermectin. But now this ProAction is basically requiring you guys to give a whole bunch of other vaccines and drugs that your herd didn't need before.
Yeah.
Now, I know that the government is saying this is for biosecurity. But have you noticed any change to the health of your herd?
I've some of my older cows, they have a little bit more trouble coming back into calf, usually an extra month or 2 sometimes. It's hard to tell because I still have a lot of old cows in my herd, but a lot of them have tapered off a little bit earlier than they used to. Like back in the day, we used to have 20-year-old cows all the time, 18-year-old cows that are calving no problems. Now our herd's probably 14, 15 years. We got a lot of cows, but it's hard to say. Another 6 years would really tell how long these cows are going to be around.
Right. So just so that I understand what you're saying is one thing you seem to be noticing is that they're not getting pregnant as quickly as before, and it may be they may not be able to get pregnant as long as they used to.
Yeah, I think that's
okay.
What it comes down to. I think it will.
Okay, well, and that's an ill health effect. That's not a positive health effect.
Yeah.
And I think also when we had an earlier conversation, you thought that your calves are getting scours more often than before.
Yeah, we started getting a lot more scours lately. So now we are trying all those vaccines that they recommend to us to try it to see if that's going to help it. We've got different minerals in that now, which before we switch out minerals and stuff like that and try different things like that. But vet recommends that we try all these things and that'll help solve the problem. But
right.
15 years ago, we never had the problem.
Right. Yeah, no, it's just interesting that again, you guys have such a history, and all of a sudden now when you're having to use all these drugs that you're having more of a problem with scours and more of a problem with cows getting pregnant. And it's interesting, like, in the drug world, they do trials on animals because animals and humans really aren't that different at the end of the day. I mean, there are differences. There was recently a documentary put out called An Inconvenient Study, and what happened is there's the Ford Medical Center in the States. It just has a huge patient database, and they basically looked into, well, what health outcomes do unvaccinated humans have and the vaccinated humans? And basically on every health measure, the unvaccinated are more healthy. And there's other studies like Dr. Paul Thomas that showed the same things. I'm just wondering if them imposing all these vaccines and drugs are actually making your herd less well. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say. My guess is yes. I think it'll affect them, or they'll just switch different drugs when these ones get not strong enough, or whatever it turns out to be. They'll just add another something.
Right, but you're not seeing your cows getting healthier with this being imposed on you.
No, I haven't seen any difference.
What's happening to the cost of dairy farming with this?
Yeah. All these extra costs, well, an extra probably $5,000 a year just on vaccines. The second, now we have a second guy come out, an inspector that we pay for out of pocket. And just for them to sign, we have to get a vet to sign all this ProAction for us. I think it's about $1,400 just to sign our papers every year. And in about an extra day and a half that me and my dad sit there and go through all the paperwork. And when the inspector comes out, we have to have everything filed, everything documented, what we've been doing. It adds an extra lot of extra work with no extra pay.
Right. Like my understanding is just, from kind of going through the ProAction documents and also speaking to you is so, if you're going to administer a drug or vaccine to an animal, you have to record it in your your workbook, and then you also have to go online and record it.
Put all the calves when they're born. We have to now get registered tags for every calf, which cows lose their ear tags pretty easily, and every time they lose it, we'd have to now order that same ear tag. I think it's just about $5 a tag. So they lose a tag, then you have to figure out which cow it was, re-tag the cow, redocument it, write how the cow lost this tag. When we sell a cow, we have to now document it online. When a cow dies, we have to document everything. When we butcher a cow for ourselves, we have to document it and what we did with the cow and all that stuff.
Oh, really? So even your own family, if you want to butcher a cow, you have to let the government know that you butchered a cow for your own use.
Yeah.
This is interesting. Now, you're also, as I understand it, now being required to use a chemical pre-dip, and that's to clean the teats before you milk, where I imagine before you just washed them, right?
Yeah, we used to just wash with a natural soap on our rags and that, to wash them all down good, and then we milk them, and at the end we'd put a low base iodine on them just so that no bacteria gets in when they're done, and that was it. Now we have to wash them, dip them with this pre-dip stuff, which there's a lot of things I can't even pronounce that is in it, and then we wipe that off again, which it stains the tit, and it must be on milk. It must have traces in the milk now. And then milk the cow, and then we pre-dip them again. Just another step that they're forcing us to do. We never did it before, never had to.
And you weren't having any problem
any of that stuff before that.
Right. This is what I find interesting, is it's being forced on you when you don't have a problem. Like if you had a problem, you'd fix it anyway, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Do you have any concern? Like I got a concern after our first interview. Like I'm for the health reasons of somebody in our family, we have to eat organic and try and have clean water and, avoid chemicals in our shampoos and stuff like that. And so we drink organic, like our dairy as much as we can, it's organic, right? But this would apply to organic farms too, this ProAction. It applies to all dairy farms.
It should, yeah.
And so I just have to tell you, I'm now worried that there's basically this ProAction is forcing dairy farmers to increase the drugs that are in the milk, drugs and chemicals.
Yep.
Do you have a concern about that?
Oh yeah. I drink. We've been drinking our milk from the tank since I was born, and the government thinks it's bad for you. But my grandma and grandpa are 95 and 96, and they've been drinking their milk their whole life, straight from the tank, and never had an issue.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know about the king, but when we had Queen Elizabeth forever, she drank raw milk every day. But her subjects, we are not allowed to drink raw milk, because that's what you're talking about now.
They say it's illegal for me to take a pail of milk home if I leave the farmyard and I live a mile down the road, and you could get jail time for that, just for having raw milk in my vehicle to take home for cereal or coffee.
That's quite something. And yeah, and now the milk that you are drinking has more chemicals and drugs in it than it used to have.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing a clicking on your end, like almost like somebody's tapping the table or something. But okay, so let's go into this ProAction. Some of the things that you have to do. You've already told us that when you give them a drug or a vaccine, you've got to basically go online and record that. You've told us if you slaughter a cow, you've got to record that. If a cow dies, my understanding is you've got to record that. And I was looking at the thing. They've got some really wild requirements. Like you have to have an operating procedure if somebody even visits your farm now. Am I right about that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just going to find that and see if I can read what it is. Oh yeah. So when you're in the manual, it's BI 06. It'd be your standard operating procedure 15. And the title of that section is, have you established and implemented a standard operating procedure in consultation with your veterinarian to prevent the introduction of infection diseases by family, employees, farm visitors, and service providers? So if your neighbor comes over for a cup of coffee, you have to have a standard operating procedure so that you know how to prevent that biosecurity hazard, your neighbor coming over for coffee. Do you know what your standard operating procedure for that is?
Well, they recommend that we have a wash plate for all our boots with a iodine base to scrub down. Not really. I don't have many people visit our farm to begin with, but
right.
Always,
you don't remember that
all the time. Truck drivers are driving our trucks for silage and all that stuff, and
yeah. So it's interesting is that this is all in theory being done. Well, I guess dairy farms have become biosecurity hazard places.
Yeah, we have a big sign on our door now saying it. Do not enter. All that stuff.
Okay, so can you just say that again? So you have a sign at your farm telling people not to enter because it's a biosecurity hazard?
Yep. Got a couple signs now on our door that has to be put there to let people know. So.
Right. And this is actually, just so that people watching understand, this is part of the ProAction program.
Yeah.
That Tyler actually has to do this. Dairy farmers have to post signs telling people not to attend and that this is a biosecurity hazard. And Tyler, we had started this conversation. You guys would have school class after school class after school class visiting your farm. You had this really well-behaved cow that the kids would practice milking on, and I remember doing that when I was a kid. Like, it was a joy to go to dairy farm.
Save bottles of milk for the kids to feed the baby calves, stuff like that too. Yeah, we used to get about 400 plus kids a year.
Yeah, and now that will be prohibited because these kids will be a biosecurity hazard to the cows.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, I remember as a kid, we'd have our school that's down the road here would show up, and we'd have 6 buses show up 3 times in the summertime, and they'd come out there. They'd have a picnic out there. Everybody would try the milk. Everybody would get pens, erasers, a whole pad, Dixie cups to eat, feed a bottle calf. A lot of these parents had never been on a farm before and learned a lot of things and asked questions. We'd have a hay ride that went through
Okay, I think I just lost Tyler for a sec. Tyler, I don't know if you can see us, but there you go, you're back.
There you go. Yeah, we had a hay ride. We'd put all the kids on a wagon and we'd pull them through the field with the tractor and show them all the cows. And if anybody's calving, we'd stop and watch them calf and all that kind of stuff. And then it slowly just tapered off to, they didn't want to give any pens, pencils, erasers, didn't want kids coming out anymore, and field trips all stopped.
Right. And now this would be a biosecurity hazard that's prohibited by federal government regulations. And what bugs me is like with humans, kids that play in the dirt, like farm kids are probably the healthiest kids in the world. We know that we're not supposed to be in a sterile environment. It'll be the same with cows. And I've never heard of cows getting sick from a school class visiting or a neighbor coming over for coffee. Like I just think they're trying to scare us, and that this is doing no good. But I'd like your thoughts. I mean, you live on the farm. Do you feel safer now that?
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. Never had an issue 15 years of doing it.
Yeah. And as a kid, you grew up on the farm. Like I mean, I'm almost saying this in a joking way because I think it's outrageous that somehow people visiting a farm is a biosecurity threat. You have to have procedures if you take a cow to a cattle show and bring the cow back. You have to have procedures if you buy a new cow. Like, did you have a problem before? Like, really, with you'd go to the cattle show and you'd buy a new cow?
No.
Was it? Yeah, like.
Yeah, we used to buy calves all the time when we were over shipping. When we shipped too much milk, we just buy a bunch of calves, stick them in our calf huts, and feed our extra milk. Because now, if you ship too much milk, you're better off dumping it because they charge you to ship extra milk. So before we would just buy calves and all that to eat all the milk, drink it up.
Right. And that's an interesting point. So like some people don't understand. So dairy farmers, you buy quotas, and then so you can deliver a certain amount of milk. And if you don't have a quota, you can't sell milk to the dairy board at all. But before, if you had too much milk, like the cows are producing more, you could still drop it off and that milk would get used by it eventually would find its way into the grocery store or cheese or whatever. But now they actually fine you if you drop off extra milk.
Yeah, actually, a lot of the farmers in my area, a lot of them right now are over shipping, so they just dump their milk. They dump loads of it, just just drain it. It's kind of a waste. I think it's a complete waste, but yeah, they're better off. They're better off to just dump it down the drain than they are to give it to them, and maybe they discount the milk, maybe they make different things, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I think that would surprise a few people. Now, all these procedures, like I think it's fair for me to say you think they're not necessary.
Yep.
Like if we could go back,
a lot of overreach.
Yeah, a
lot of overreach from the government telling us what to do, and the new inspectors and all that. Some of the inspectors have never lived on a farm, lived in the country, just straight out of college, textbook. This is how you have to do it. This is this. This is this. This is all just more red tape.
Right. And are we any safer? Because I think we're less safe. I think our milk now is going to be filled with chemicals. Well, I think our cows are going to be less healthy because I think cows are like humans. You give them too much drugs and they're less healthy.
Yeah, I think so too.
Right. And I imagine it's like, I know there's an extra cost. You have to pay for the veterinarian to come. You've got all this extra paperwork, and that I think you even said like the vaccines now, it's an extra $5,000 a year for that. And it's like $1,400 for the veterinarian to fill in the paperwork. But I also expect that there's a cost to your lifestyle because, for example, you said there's an extra day or two, even just doing the paperwork when the veterinarian comes. and you've got added inspections, and you have to be recording things in your book, and you have to be recording things online. And often, like, so when I was a little kid, I wanted to be a farmer just because I thought it would be a fun lifestyle, but it's sounding like it's becoming, really tedious. Can you comment on that?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of extra little things that I'm not the paper side of things, and they add all these paper things and all the computer things extra. You have to get another laptop to put all your stuff on. I have a new app on my phone to write down all my cows and information on it. And there's just a lot more extra. And there was no extra pay, no extra money for the milk, none of that stuff that came with it.
Right. And when we had a conversation earlier, as my understanding is some people have actually left dairy farming because they've just found this ProAction.
They were getting to the age that they were debating on which route to go. They had kids that probably would have took over the farm had they had the chance, but they added all these extra things. They're going to want us to get a slurry tank, for example, where we hold our liquid manure. Mm-hmm. And we don't have liquid manure. We always bed in straw on our floors because the cows have trouble walking on cement and their feet start hurting after a while. Where we always put straw down and we always pile up our manure and then just let it rot that way and keep stirring it until we spread it in our fields. Mm-hmm. But with the liquid manure, we need a big tank that holds it, which then the cows are always walking on cement, which now they want us to put rubber on our floors if the cow's feet hurt. But we never had to use that. We've always had 100% good herd health with our feet. We never had a guy out to trim our cow's feet ever before. And now with this slurry tank is in the millions of dollars, just that alone. And it would change the whole process of the way we spread our manure.
Right. So I just want to make sure that the average person understands. So, the dairy barn where they're milked, it's a concrete floor, and you guys would put hay down. And that's so that the cows aren't.
We put straw down. We use a bale every 2 days. A bale every 2 days on the floor. Right. And then every 2 or 3 days we push it out, and then just start again.
Right. And
so they're
push
always
it out.
Walking on it.
They're walking on it, and there's manure, and then you guys would eventually. So you'd have a pile of that hay and manure, and eventually it gets spread on the field. And you've been doing that for 76 years. Yeah. But now they want to have liquid manure, and you have to have a slurry tank that will cost $1 million.
Oh, more than $1 million, yeah. And we also leave it like a lot of the new farms. If you look at all the big guys that are starting way bigger operations, all their cows are indoors now. Cows don't go outside. Or we have 10 acres. When it's under -20, our cows go outside. In the summertime, you'll watch these old cows just kneading the ground with their feet, standing on the dirt, getting to eat some grass, stuff like that. And we've always had good feet, where all these other big farms now, they have to get someone in to trim their cows' feet every couple months. The cows are walking a lot more stiff, and they never get to be outside.
Oh, wow. Okay, so this is new to me. So new big dairy farms, the cows, because I think of cows, even dairy cows, as outdoor cows, that they go out during the day and they come back to get milk.
Yep. That's how we have a nice little barn out there, 10-acre little pad that they can go out and eat grass, and they have a straw pack out there. And that when it's over -20, we leave them locked in so they don't freeze their teats. And after 2 or 3, 4 days, depending on how cold it is, when it warms up, you let them outside and you just watch the cows. They'll just go stand outside and just be on the ground instead of having to stand on cement all day.
Wow, that'd be like locking people inside all day and not letting them out. So
yeah,
I didn't know that. That just from an animal welfare perspective is upsetting.
Yeah.
And where I think
convenience, they say it's convenience for farming. The cows aren't outside, everything's inside. You don't have to have fences, you don't have to have any of this stuff anymore.
Yeah.
I've always had better luck letting them out. Their feet do better, they walk better. Yeah.
It's interesting because I think that the whole purpose of this, because when like I didn't see a problem with dairy farming at all. And I think people like you know exactly what you're doing. And I would rather have milk from your cow that gets out and eats grass and gets sunshine and gets to knead its feet in the ground than a cow that's in a building the whole time,
Yeah.
on concrete and never has sunshine. So
It's comparable to the chickens that are in a chicken factory in pens indoors all their life, eating the exact same food compared to eating a pasture raised egg. I have chickens too, and I got like 15-year-old chickens that are still producing really good, and they eat outside all day. They eat grass, they scratch in the dirt, and it's just night and day to a chicken. It's life, really.
Right. Yeah, animals
Same
are supposed to be animals.
Yeah.
So, because where I think this is going, so again, I'm just saying, I think they're making it worse. I think our food is going to be less healthy, our animals are going to be less healthy. But what happens is, and this is new to the farming, but we see it in other industries. And we've seen it with the abattoirs about 18 years ago. So they consolidate, they get rid of the little ones, and then they have big ones. And I think, Tyler, where this is going is to get rid of the family farm so that we only have the big dairy farm.
Yeah. Well, 5 years ago, those 5 dairy farms around my house here, and we're the last ones. Everybody else has closed their doors, went a different direction. Yeah.
Right. Including your uncle that would have grown up on the farm.
Neighbors down the road. Yeah. They all have kids, and most of those kids would have took over the dairy part of it.
Right. So that's an example of the family farm ending because of the government stepping in to do all these regulations. So where do you think this is good for Canadians and are good for our food?
No, I don't.
So what should we do? What do you think the answer is?
Well, I think the government has to have less interference with everything. They're pushing a lot of just more red tape, just makes it a little difficult. The big guys can get bigger and bigger and bigger, and they have big barns, and they have, one guy who's milking 600 cows just took out 7 little guys, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a lot of their workers now are all coming in from Mexico, and that where all the little guys, they were just family farms.
Right.
Hiring the neighbor to drive truck, hiring the neighbor to help when they go on holidays and stuff like that.
Yeah. So it's a worry I have. I actually think whenever government gets involved, things get worse. There's one thing I forgot to ask you. We went through all these vaccines, all these drugs that you're required to give as a dairy farmer, but you also have non-dairy cows just on the other side of the fence. Are they required to do any of this?
Not yet, but it's going to come to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
One side of the fence is dairy. One side is beef. The beef side, we just give them their black leg. And if we need to treat them for scours and that, we can do that. But other than that, that's it.
Right.
Put ear tags in the ear. I write it in a book, so I have all their numbers, but I'm not mandatory to put it online. I'm not mandatory to give them everything that they recommend, but that will come.
Mm-hmm.
If
I'm convinced they want to get
going.
Well, it's interesting. They had passed. So the House of Commons, not this Parliament, but the Parliament before, I think it was Bill 294 or 298 or something. It was this Pandemic Preparedness Act, and it passed the House of Commons. So it was in the Senate. So it didn't become law because an election got called in, and bills die if they're not through both houses. But the public was looking at it quite, had a real focus on it because it required Canada to basically align with the World Health Organization pandemic, preparedness things. But it had an agricultural end to it. And it actually required the Minister of Health to phase out traditional agriculture that poses a pandemic risk. So, you know, can you say swine flu? Can you say bird flu? Can you say hoof and mouth disease or mad cow? Can you say chronic wasting disease for cervids? And obligated the Minister of Health by law to find alternative sources of protein. So it's an interesting world. So, Tyler, it's just been an absolute pleasure having you on. And I thank you for agreeing to have this interview, because I think it's important for Canadians to know. I had no idea until I spoke to you what was going on. And we rely on dairy farmers for a big part of our protein. And I think it's important. So thank you very much on behalf of the NHPPA for participating with this interview.